This episode of The Unstarving Musician is powered by liner notes. Learn from the hundreds of musicians and industry professionals I've spoken with for The Unstarving Musician on topics such as marketing, songwriting, touring, sync licensing, and much more. Sign up for liner notes at unstarvingmusician.com. It's an email newsletter from yours truly in which I share some of the best knowledge gems garnered from the many conversations featured on The Unstarving Musician. You'll also be privy to the latest podcast episodes and liner notes subscriber exclusives. Sign up at unstarvingmusician.com. It's free and you can unsubscribe at any time. This is The Unstarving Musician. I am Rabonzo. This is my podcast. It features conversations with independent music artists and industry professionals, and yours truly, all intended to help independent music artists better understand the marketing, business, and creative processes that empower us to do more of what we love: make music. Thank you for joining me for another episode. This is number 270. On a very somber, heavy note, I just got word that my sister-in-law, Mary, has passed. I have known Mary all of my life, literally. She met me when I was a baby. She was just a few years older than me. She's been battling some illness for a number of years and was in home hospice care for the last few weeks with her husband, one of my older brothers. And, she's no longer suffering. And, heavy. On today's episode, Grant Tilbury. Grant, I keep forgetting to ask you how to pronounce your other last name. Jaiswal? Jaiswal. I'm just going to go with Grant Tilbury. Is my guest for this episode. Grant is formerly with Tract, which we've talked about in his prior appearances. I've also chatted with musician collaborators, users of Tract, in prior episodes. Tract is the collaboration platform that enables musicians to record, collaborate, and share their music creations all from their iOS device. Openstage, Grant's new venture, place of adventure, it's not his venture, allows artists, labels, and music managers to efficiently develop and scale their core audience and business, giving artists tools and insights to understand who their fans are and giving fans great experiences with the artists they love. Grant joined Openstage in June of 2022. He has worked in the artist management and representation side of the music business for well over 10 years. This is his third appearance on The Unstarving Musician. He was also in episodes 174 and 194. Welcome back, Grant. Our conversation for this episode offers insight into what Openstage is all about and also some very practical advice and examples of how to grow an audience and fan base. Grant and I also talk about fascinating Openstage artist case studies, engagement benchmarks and advice for music artists and artist managers, building fan loyalty, and a lot more. There's always more, right? You can learn about Openstage at openstage.live. I'll have links in the show notes to Grant's prior appearances and all the other good stuff mentioned in this episode. So without further ado, please enjoy my conversation with Grant Tilbury of Openstage.
Hi, Rabonzo.
Hey, how are you, amigo?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing well. What time is it there?
It is 5 o'clock, or 5 minutes past 5. How are things with you? It's been a while.
I know. I was noticing we spoke on first time July of 2020 and then in April of 2021. Can you believe it? How long it's been?
Yeah, it's been long. You've made a move since then, haven't you?
Yeah. Let's see. So April 1 last year we moved to Querétaro, Mexico, which is about 3 hours drive from Mexico City to the northeast. Yeah, I believe I got
Wow.
that right. it's
Yeah.
a it's a kind of a high desert mountainy area, and yeah,
It's
we're having
amazing. I'd love to go to Mexico. I've never been.
come visit.
I know, I know. I've heard so many people have moved to Mexico City from London.
Really?
Yeah, there's quite a few actually. It seems to be the place to go.
Well, a lot of Mexicans are moving out of Mexico City.
That's probably why all the Londoners. Oh,
Well,
awesome.
I think it's getting really big. Just all the people that have been there a long time, and then the pandemic, of course. It's like, okay, this I'm not going to do this. So
Yeah.
yeah, our area is exploding consequently because we're like one of the safest cities and just like a very desirable area and booming and all that. So, but yeah, if you guys ever come out to Mexico City, we'll meet you there, and you can come to Querétaro, hang with us. We can go wine tasting or whatever you want to do, eat.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah, yeah,
Amazing.
anytime. We have guest accommodations.
Oh, brilliant. How's the drumming going?
Good. I never do it enough, but yeah, I've got some practice time scheduled today in my head. It's not literally on the calendar like it should be, but a little bit of drum rehearsal time and a little bit of vocal rehearsal time. And I haven't done a lot of gigs here, but I did actually the third one since I've been here with the same ensemble, except for the addition of a proper lead vocalist, and it was a lot of fun. The venue wants to have us back monthly. It's a great little venue, and we don't have to stay out too late, so it's all pretty good.
Nice, nice. That sounds amazing.
Yeah. Where are you
That's
today, by the way? Are you in London?
Yes, I'm in London. Yeah, I moved here in 2019. So since I've known you, I've lived in London.
Where did you move from? We probably talked about this before.
I wasn't that far away. I was in Wales,
Okay.
which is about 3 hours west of London by
Okay.
car. So yeah, I was over there for well, pretty much moved between London and Wales all my adult life, So, but yeah, I'm back up in London now. So my wife got her spouse visa through because I met her when I was out in India, and we moved to London when she got here basically.
Yeah,
So we've
cool.
got that. Spent
Are
most of
you
our married life.
you guys enjoying the city life then?
Yeah, yeah, we love it. Yeah,
Cool.
yeah, sorry. So have you been to London?
Yeah, sorry. I thought I lost you. Maybe you just weren't saying anything.
No, I was. I just something cut out.
Yeah, yeah. So you were talking about London?
Yeah, no. So I said, have you
Oh
been
yeah.
before?
Yeah, so really a couple of times for any length of time, and never more than like 3 to 4 days. And then there was
Yeah,
another time where there was kind of an overnight, but yeah, I love it there. It's really nice. It's very
yeah,
different, of course, than what I grew up, in Texas, and I spent a lot of years in California, as you know, and then in Latin America. But yeah, it's cool. It's different, and the vibe is nice. Food's good, the beer's good.
yeah, yeah. It's good. I mean, it's kind of like because it's a big transient city. It's kind of like New York in a way, isn't it? It's that kind of big, kind
Mm-hmm.
of we've got people coming through. So there's never a dull moment really. You're always got something going on. There's lots of culture here, lots of food, lots of music, lots of yeah, just lots of interesting things happening that we enjoy. So
Yeah, totally. As a direct result of the podcast too, feel like I have so many acquaintances there where before I think I had zero. I mean, I certainly know people from London, but now if or when we go back, I'll be able to say, "Hey, do you want to meet up?"
yeah, yeah,
Yourself included. So that'd
yeah.
be great. And even
I-
some musicians,
yeah.
that I could go see in some local venues, possibly if I coordinate things well. So
Yeah, no, it's fantastic for that. Funny enough, there's been several trips that I've been on in recent years where I've kind of met up with people that I met through Tract or for the pandemic and all that sort of stuff. So
so when did you join Openstage?
I joined Open Stage almost uh think it
Wait,
was the
hold that thought, hold that thought. Let me try that one
all
more
right.
time. Only because I realized I did something I always do at the beginning of an interview. I say so, but when did you join Openstage?
I joined Openstage June 1st, 2023, 2022. So almost, well, over a year ago now.
Did it go fast?
Yes, it's been an absolute whirlwind of a year. It's been interesting to work at a company where we've got a platform that is in such need right now for sort of developing an artist or just artists in general. A place where you can understand your core audience, figure out the insights. And sorry, Bond, can we start again? I feel like I completely fluffed my lines on all of that stuff. Yeah,
No,
it's not
it's all good, and I'm going to ask you more about it too. And thank you for
all
letting
right.
me thank you for letting me pose the question again. It was I was like, okay, good, and I didn't laugh at myself for doing that. No, that's good, and I want to ask you more about it. And
Yeah.
I'm obviously interested about the transition from tracked to open stage. So if you could share whatever you can or want to, that would be good for me and maybe others who know who you are.
My work at Tract, I absolutely loved my time there. What I liked about it was the collaboration element of songwriters and musicians coming together to create works. I really enjoyed the community side of it. There was I think the platform in that creative space was potentially slightly. I think there's still time for it in the future. I think recording on a mobile phone, like having a DAW on a mobile phone, is still quite a new idea, and I'm sure that will come into its own in the future in its time. I think it was a concept that quite a few people got to. I mean, we had a couple of 100,000 people around the world that had downloaded it and were experimenting. I really enjoyed seeing some of the sort of demos that came out of that and some of the projects that came out of it. Like the Dave Stewart competition over lockdown, for example, was a real highlight of my time there. I feel like the transition was kind of like moving more towards what the work I was doing at Tract. I kind of felt that I kind of wanted to help musicians and their teams develop their core artist businesses. And obviously, the work that I was doing at Tract was kind of more on that, I guess, the creative side. And an opportunity came up at Openstage, and Openstage was developed because there wasn't a natural place, or there didn't seem to be a natural place for artists and their managers to understand who their core audiences were. And I think that's something that I kind of cottoned onto quite quickly at my time at Tract. I was like, actually, it's really difficult for musicians to kind of make any kind of meaningful income or decisions because their data is all over the place, and it's really difficult to get traction on any platform, if big or small, Tract included. It's difficult to create a business through Instagram. It's difficult to create a business through Spotify and Apple Music, where these things are great for discovery. They're not necessarily great for looking after your core audience. I came across someone that I've known for a long time who offered me an opportunity to join Openstage. And I was really impressed with the platform and the work that they'd done to date with bands like the Wombats and Valeris and a brand new band called Only the Poets, who are kind of on this big meteoric rise at the moment by doing very, very basic things really, really well. And what I was finding was that lots of data was being siloed across lots of different platforms, and ultimately the artist or their management teams had no idea. They didn't really own that information on that data. Like the likes of Facebook and Instagram and Spotify and all of these different platforms essentially rented your audience. You kind of join up, you put your work on there, and you just had no idea who these people were. So if you wanted to know, the people that all your fans in Mexico City, for example, it would be really, really difficult for you to understand exactly who those fans are and reach out to them at any point that you wanted. So they essentially built a CRM system bespoke to the music industry around all the different tools that artists and their managers use. And they apply a really, really interesting, marketing 101 funnel approach to everything that they do. And that's what I pretty much do at the moment with our clients. I kind of sit down with them, we work out what their plan is and what their business objectives are, and we simply look at all of the places where we can optimize discovery, and how do we nurture fans through from that discovery area through to becoming a fan and then through to becoming a super fan. And how do we keep talking to that audience, and how do we keep engaging with them and nurturing them, and making that relationship a long-term relationship where essentially a fan ends up, giving an artist a sustained career, and allows them to kind of journey through time and to keep doing their craft and their art. So I joined Openstage in June of 2022. I've been here a year. I've seen us go from, I think I was looking after, I was heading up the artist label relations team there. I still am. We've gone from like 30 clients to now well over 150. So it's been a all hands on deck, small team, onboarded a lot of clients. We've had a lot of success in the last 12 months. I think with our clients, we've managed 5 UK number one albums, a few UK number one singles by working with our artists, managers to identify their fans, and then lean into those fan bases to achieve the things that they've set out to achieve. So yeah, that's pretty much what I've been up to. So I've kind of moved from that kind of creator space to a kind of like director fan artist marketing space.
That's cool. And I looked at probably when we first reconnected, I looked at the business model, some of the case studies and your clients. It looks really cool. You did a nice job of describing it there. I'm a little curious about when it comes to corralling an artist's data. Is that a combination of circumventing some of the networks and augmenting some of the data that they do provide? And did you guys have to establish new relationships with some of the social networks in order to do that?
We just sort of realized when we sit down, there's no kind of, we're not scraping any data from anywhere. Any fan to artist relationship is fully consensual through a landing page or a fan big link sort of page or a phone number. Mm-hmm. So the fan is directly opting into the artist, and establishing that relationship there and then. What we do with those platforms, and we kind of speak with these digital teams and say, look, these platforms are absolutely essential for getting the word out there, and getting discovered. So you kind of use these platforms for what they're really good at. But essentially, the way you're orientating and using them, you should be trying to incentivize fans to come and take a step closer to you through signing up. And then once they've signed up, you need to nurture and engage them. Kind of use like a coffee shop analogy. I think we're really good at kind of getting people through the door sometimes, but then we completely neglect the people that are sat down and having a cup of coffee. If you want them to keep coming back, you want to know what their name are, what their favorite color is, what the dog's name is, etc., etc. So I think that's the kind of, to kind of simplify it, that's kind of what we're doing here. We're trying to kind of get people in through the front door. And once they're in, developing a community and an environment that they want to keep coming back to and engaging in. And obviously the music is a big part of that, but it's also the way that the artists communicate with that fan base. I think historically artists have had a pretty bad reputation for just asking all of the time. Stream this, buy that, pre-save that, and fans most of the time haven't got a clue what a pre-save is. It's still quite a relatively new concept, right? So it's all about educating those fans and bringing them in and kind of rewarding them, and having access to stuff before anybody else, and it's about educating that audience. Anything cool happens here, you want a pre-sale for the upcoming tour, I want to reward my most loyal fans. So our system allows you to figure out who's been the most engaged, and send them all sorts of bonuses and things like that. So that's what it's about, really. It's about how do you optimize the tools that are already out there and working for you, and then how can you take control of your core audience, And I think the problem with the music industry traditionally is that all the data is siloed between the different factions of the industry. So you've got the promoters have one set of data, the record label might have another set of data, you're publishing another set, your merch company, the other set, and none of that is together. And if you've got different teams working those different areas for you, they're kind of hitting the same people with different messages all the time, always asking, not
Yeah,
really
right.
giving. So we kind of work to a nice framework of give three, ask once, which is kind of like a sort of rule of thumb that we try to adhere to. Where we give fans things, but at the time that you want them to do something, they're much more willing to get on board with the campaign and get involved with what you're trying to do, essentially. So it's that, and when you bring all that data from all those different places under one hood, which is what Openstage allows you to do, that's when data becomes more meaningful. You can start drawing insight from that data. I can understand Mary in New York has bought two tickets. She streams on Spotify and has bought a white medium sized T-shirt. It's like, wow, okay, well, I know that person's really engaged. Whereas Mary's friend John might have only just streamed and is not quite the level that Mary's at yet. But so you can start understanding those relationships and nurturing those fans through to super fans over time, which is really exciting as well. Because when you see all that data in one place, it is really powerful. And I don't think artists or managers have really seen all of that stuff side by side before. So there's quite a lot of really cool wow moments when you do kickoff calls and you can provide this information for them. But most of the data that comes in is through fans opting in on the likes of social media, or they might hold existing sales data sets from their Shopify store or from their Eventbrite or that kind of thing, and that's how information comes into
Yeah.
the system.
I imagine you talk to oftentimes the artist and maybe even, I'm guessing more so, the management, air quotes, management team or the artist representation about the details of the platform, the benefits of it. But say I'm an artist who fits the prospective clientele profile. What is I guess the extended elevator pitch, the condensed pitch, but one where
Yeah,
we had a couple of minutes to talk? What is the pitch that you give me, not knowing for sure how much of this I really understand? As an artist, maybe I understand
yeah.
a lot, which more and more musicians and artists are understanding this because they have to. But maybe you run into some that don't.
Yeah.
But what is the pitch for the platform?
Well, from an artist just starting out with this sort of stuff,
Sure, you ran into
or
me, you
any level.
recognize me. You're like, "Oh my God,
Okay,
Rabanzo would be a this would be a good fit for him." And we've got an elevator ride. What do you tell me?
start owning your own fan base. Don't become reliant on platforms that don't rely on platforms that are essentially going to charge you cash to reach the followers that you've already got. I think you're far better to be in control of that information for the long term. I think a lot of artists I've come across a lot of artists actually who have always kind of built mailing lists and looked at their core fan base, and I think they've always managed to be successful. I think starting out, it's really important to know to start developing that community from day one. I don't think it's enough anymore just to kind of produce music, put it out there, and then kind of expect everything to come to you. Sometimes it can happen, it does happen, but I think that's in a very, very, very rare minority of cases. So I always encourage artists to always think about their fans first and how they can best connect and develop a relationship with those fans.
Cool. Tell me about something I wanted to ask you. I was thinking about when we first reconnected to help listeners and myself. This may be a redo or a re-explanation for me, but is to help us understand your background and how it led you, career-wise to where you are at the moment and your fascination. So can you just talk a little bit about your background and how it applies to all these things you're doing with the Open Stage now?
Well, I started off playing music and working in a guitar shop in my hometown of Newport in South Wales, playing music and was kind of obsessed with music like all musicians are. And I kind of wanted to sort of venture into different aspects of the industry, which kind of led me to do a. At the time, there wasn't many degrees you couldn't really study many university courses around music management. So I kind of enrolled on one of the first ones in the UK in a place called Lipper in Liverpool, running a music management and entertainment course. That I kind of got into that, and then pretty much decided I was going to be in the music management realm moving forward. And over those years, then I managed several artists to various degrees of success. I became a tour manager for a bit, which kind of led me into lots of different, led me around the world into different places to meet some amazing people. And then I kind of got into the music technology side of things when I met Russell Sheffield in South by Southwest in 2015. That kind of led me on a completely new journey with music tech and the whole creative space and A&R and bringing things together. And then I kind of realized actually, yeah, this is like I was really interested in the building of artists and building of artist businesses and building of artist fan communities, and this has kind of led me to where I am now. So kind of understanding like the live side of things and how that works, the management side of things and how that works, and the music tech side of things and how that works, and how you can apply technology to make things more efficient for artists and their managers. There's one thing that I have learned over the years is that artists are incredibly busy people, or can be incredibly busy people, and then they're often time poor, and it's quite difficult to know how to. You have to kind of learn lots of different skill sets in order to get by and in order to build solid artist businesses, and it can be very, very difficult to understand even where to start. So that was something that I was keen to help develop, is this platform that allows you to do that very, very easily and succinctly, and kind of give artists an opportunity to just do what they're great at, which is obviously create music and get that music out there to people, and make sure that they're connecting with their fans in the right way, and to be able to kind of do it long term, because I feel like a lot of artists just kind of give up at the first hurdle when they're really talented, because they can't really see a way of it being a viable vocation for them. It's kind of like, oh right, well, I can't make any money doing this, so I go back to something that's sort of safe and secure. And you see that all over the place. There's some really, really talented people that who are out there who are struggling. And I think I think that the technology and the tools are there for them to be able to have a decent go at it, and to nurture and develop a fan base and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, I hope that answers your question. I don't know if I
No, it
answered it
does.
properly or
And
not.
for an artists who are listening to our conversation, and certainly they can uh, go to openstage.live to learn more. But what are some of the benchmarks that an artist needs to have or met in order for it to make sense for them to look at the Openstage platform?
It would definitely make sense. You want to be capturing fans at any opportunity that you've got. So building a mailing list. I think where Openstage is currently at with the price points and things, it would make sense for you to have something going on in terms of you've already got the start of an artist community. You've already got you might have sold some merch already. You might have toured and done some shows already. You might have music on streaming platforms that are streaming really well, and you've got fans actively seeking you out on Instagram and Facebook. And then once you've got something going on there, then I think it makes sense to have a platform in place like Openstage that will allow you then to capture those fans and figure out where they are, figure out all the different data points on them, and then put campaigns in place to engage with those artists. So I probably recommend that you kind of want to start to have fairly decent numbers, like maybe I don't know, just putting some kind of arbitrary metrics around it. Like I'd say several thousand fans on Instagram, streams into the thousands. Maybe you've sold some merch through a Shopify store. Maybe you've sold out your hometown show, and you want to know where else you want to tour. So you need to kind of find out location data on fans. That's the kind of place where I think we really come into our own. So I think up until that point, you're better off just kind of working on your craft, getting music out there, and building the foundations of what is going to become your artist business. So yeah, I think that's a good benchmark. It's almost and what we do it's is it Kevin Kelly's Thousand True
Mm-hmm.
Fans idea. It's kind of like building towards that. At what point do you kind of go, right, okay, and now I need to know who these fans are. I need to engage them. I need to kind of keep them with me well into the future. I think that's a good place to sort of to look at it. So if you've been a musician for years, and you've got plenty of people that know about you, you've got a bit of a following on the social media platforms, you've got streaming well, you can sell out like local shows or shows for this is where Openstage can really, really add value to what you're doing, because you can start understanding who those people are, and then you can start making proper actionable decisions based on the data. So to give you an example, we had a brand new band called Only the Poets who helped us develop the platform. They had this opportunity to go on tour with a much larger artist. It was Louis Tomlinson from One Direction, and it was just prior to the pandemic. And they were like, well, how can we best use this opportunity to understand the fans who cared about us in the audience as a support act for this artist? So they had a phone number, which was our phone number that we gave them. And Tommy, the singer, who's kind of very, very articulate and emotionally intelligent, and halfway through the show, he said, "This is amazing. Thank you so much, Louis, for giving us the opportunity. We're a young band from Reading in the UK, and this is our first time in Madrid, and I can't believe we're standing here before everybody here. This is absolutely incredible. If you really liked what you heard tonight from us, we want to come back and play for you in Madrid. Here's our phone number." The phone number flashed up on the
That's amazing.
and he said, look, just give us a call or text us. And the fans were calling it and texting it, and they were getting about 400 or 500 signups per city. What that then allowed them to do was to message those fans and build a relationship with those fans. And lo and behold, they did what they said they were going to do. They were true to their word. They went back a few months later and said, "Hey, okay, well, listen, we're coming back to Madrid. We're playing this small venue. Whoever wants to come and see us." And they were the first to get the ticket, and they sold that instantly, pretty much. I mean, it was quite an interesting case study, because a lot of the promoters couldn't quite believe that they had this band that had been in their city once, that had all of these fans that all of a sudden desperate for a ticket to go and to go see them. So they were actually upgrading the venues, and the promoter and the agent was kind of advising the manager, like, look, we think you should do 250 tickets, and on the poster have sold out on it, because it's a good look. And then the data, our data was showing them they could do 1,000 tickets. So we're like, well, hang on a second, why are we ignoring these 750 extra fans that want to come and see us play? They've got 15 euros out. They're desperate to come and see us. Why are we going to leave that on the table? Because they're going to go and spend that 15 euros on the next band if they don't come to us. So let's upgrade the venue. So they did that, and they upgraded the venues all the way across Europe, and they ended up selling an extra 26,000 tickets, all across all the major markets and major territories in Europe, and like Berlin and Paris and Amsterdam and Groningen and places like this. And it was just amazing to see that if you could get fans to register that they wanted to go to a show, and then talk to them, not just talk to them when you want them to buy something, but actually develop a story, a narrative, a conversation, what you could achieve. And it took a while. This is an instant gratification for artists. This is all about the graft and making sure you're constantly talking to fans and developing those relationships. That took several months to build. And Tommy, the singer, was doing all sorts. And obviously lockdown happened, and during lockdown he decided that he was going to Zoom every single fan that was on the database. and he did like 1,000 Zoom calls in about 3 months. And he was just literally just zooming fans and just, talking about their experiences, singing to them songs that they wanted to hear, and all that sort of stuff. And as you can imagine, that just that act alone of habitually doing that, fan to fan to fan, they couldn't quite believe an artist had took the time out to do that for them. But what it did, it really, really took the fans to take a much, much closer step to the artist. And then, and they've been able to kind of like rely on those fans ever since. Those fans have been their biggest advocates, and they've been to every show. They've bought every T-shirt. They've put, it's just been incredible to see that. They've taken sort of fan engagement to another level as well, because they at the start of this year they signed to EMI Records in the UK, which was quite unusual because it was EMI doesn't seem to be signing guitar bands, so it was quite interesting to see that happen. And when that happens, when they did sign, they were kind of wanting to. The fans that own the band, it's that kind of thing. The fans are so invested in what the band does, and there's such a warm relationship between the fan and the artist. They wanted to make sure the fans were part of it, so they actually signed the record deal with the fans. So they put these billboards up in places like Reading and Berlin and Paris, and they invited the fans to come to Paris, to come to Berlin, and actually sign the record contract, put their name on and sign the record contract with them, like signing the billboards and stuff like that, and then taking a picture of it. And so it felt like it felt like they've taken the band from nothing, which they had done, from nothing to this amazing milestone in their career, signing their first major record deal. And they've continued to do that ever since. So that's been a real kind of highlight for all of us working at the company to see that happen. From a band that's gone from absolutely nothing to to where they're at now, and now they're being played all over Radio 1 in the UK. They've been on tour with Lewis Capaldi. They're about to go on tour with some big acts that I can't mention just yet because I don't think it's public knowledge. But they've been doing really good work, and they've always been putting fans first, and it's just paid off dividends. And it's and they are kind of like, there's a lot of people looking to them kind of going, well, how have they done that? And there's not really any other substitute for hard work and common sense, and applying a very, very simple marketing methods to what they were doing. So, and obviously the music's good as well, so otherwise that it wouldn't really work if if there wasn't anything there. But all of those things combined is really kind of paid off for them.
What is the singer's name for Only the Poets?
Tommy.
Tommy. He sounds like a really bright guy as well. And the idea that that started with the phone number at the gig sounds so crazy, but it clearly worked really well.
I tell you what, so Sam, my manager, is a colleague of ours, and it's probably one of the most creative marketing brains I've ever come across. Some of his ideas are absolutely genius. He's got a really great understanding of like an artist's unique, position. Because that worked really well for them, but it wouldn't necessarily work for the next artist. There's always something that an artist has that would work really, really well. So I'll give you two examples. So this is just two examples around the phone number. We're working with this rock dance act called Pendulum in the UK. Well, I think they're Australian British. They were big in they're a big band. There's no getting away from it. But they're doing like a re-establishment campaign about a year ago. They wanted to again know their fan base, engage with their fans. So we decided that the best way to deliver that, they were doing a secret gig at Reading Festival in the UK, and they were playing like the BBC Radio 1 dance tent. So we're like, well, how can we kind of like do this in a very innovative, interesting way? How do we announce it and get fans on board? So we had that their logo's fairly recognizable. So we just had these huge billboard style posters are all dotted around the Reading Festival and Leeds Festival sites, just with the logo and a big phone number, nothing else. And then when fans rang it, there was one of the tunes was playing on the voicemail, and it said, it announced that we were playing 7 o'clock on Saturday night at the BBC One dance tent. So what happened then was, we had thousands of people call it. What's this all about? The national press picked it up because they were, it was such an interesting way. Like, oh, they're back, they're playing this, and then fans were sharing the number and ringing it, and all that sort of stuff. And they generated tens of thousands of phone calls over that weekend, which then gave them access to those fans as soon as they finished, and they went and sold, developed, nurtured a relationship with those fans, and then sent them a ticket to their own headline show at London's Brixton Academy. Or sadly, that didn't happen. It went to Alexandra Palace in March because Brixton Academy sadly suffered a fire around the Christmas period here. But if it wasn't for that, they wouldn't have known which fans were still with them and engaged with them and all that sort of stuff. So that was another one of Sam's ideas. He did it around the same time as well for Lewis Capaldi, who are you familiar with Lewis Capaldi, Robonzo?
His name is vaguely familiar. Tell me about him.
Lewis Capaldi is a Scottish singer-songwriter. He had a US hit, he had a global hit. So he is known quite widely in the US. He had quite a big tour there recently. He's a kind of internet sensation as well. He's a very, very funny person. He's just come off a big tour. But what we did with him at Christmas was he has a huge Instagram following of just over 7 million, I think. But it's not just 7 million, it's 7 million very, very, very engaged fans that comment on everything, like everything, share everything.
I have seen him before, and I don't know why. Maybe is he featured on Openstage by chance?
Yeah, he's one of our artists. Yeah, he's one of our clients.
I think I saw him first there. Yeah, okay. Continue. Sorry.
No worries. And so what he did is we gave him a phone number that he put onto his iPhone. Took a screenshot of the phone, put it on, and then took a picture of the phone with a number on it, and then he put it on his social media in December. And I've never seen anything quite like it. Everyone was like, "Why have you linked your number?" And like about let's just say over 100,000 people called it within 4 hours. It was quite something to see. And there's a voicemail from him saying, I don't know, he had a single called Pointless come in. He was like, "It's absolutely pointless you ringing me." So he did it in his very kind of self-deprecating way, and like in his own style, and it worked an absolute treat. And it allowed us then to kind of develop a relationship with those fans. And in January we were able to kind of like nurture those fans, and he was calling them from through the Openstage platform. He was asking them to upload screenshots of their iTunes receipts, etc. And he was thanking the fans for doing that. And it got into number one, have a number one single in the UK in early January. And that was another kind of case of an artist with a huge following, with the right type of personality, mixed with a genius marketing idea that came from Sam Jackson, and it all kind of come together in one, and it really, really worked. It allowed him to kind of capture those fans. So he shook his 6.6 million down to several 100,000 people. Let's just say, I can't tell you exactly how many people he's got on his mailing list, but it is very, very significant. And he managed to do that. Now he's got a hard record of who those people are, phone number, email. He knows their locations. He's able to use the insight and the database to be able to segment that audience, send hyper relevant information to them when he's got certain things on. So he's not alienating his fan base by sending all the time, which tends to be something that managers do. And he's been able to utilize it really, really well. And now he has control of that information, and by having that relationship with his fans, he can rely on those fans. Whatever campaign comes up in the future, they're always going to be with him. Seeing some of the messages that he's been sent over the weekend as well. From what happened at Glastonbury, it's been really it's amazing to see the artist fan relationship in such a dynamic way, and how much love there is out there for him.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. You're just looking at some of his property, I guess, online. Some of the things that are going on with him. Looks like he's having quite a nice time. And that's a cool story. So Sam Jackson, genius, huh?
Yeah, no, I genuinely is. I mean, I've known Sam just over a year. I didn't really know him before I joined. And I can honestly say, like every time I meet him, I'm more and more impressed and astonished with how his mind works. It's inspiring, you know. It's great, and it's great to surround yourself with people like that. I feel very fortunate. I feel like there's a really good group of people around this project and this company, and I'm very very grateful for it. And I know I'm in a incredibly fortunate and lucky position. And no, and not just the team that I'm working with, but the clients that I'm going to work with at the moment. It's just been, you know, it's just been really really nourishing. You know, it's been really good, and it's allowed us to. You know, I'm sorry, I feel quite emotional about it, but I genuinely feel that it's been you know, I genuinely feel like when you surround yourself with amazing people, amazing things can happen, and that's definitely something that's happening. You know, lots of amazing things are happening, and I think there's a combination of things. It's good people. There's a real need for it in the industry. You know, other industries figured this stuff out 10 years ago. I think the music industry is just catching up. Really, I mean, you don't see this in sports. You don't see this in you know the way the music industry is set up. It's been fragmented for so long for reasons that are kind of only been known to the inner workings of the music industry. If you see what I mean, you know, you'd think that everybody would talk to each other and share information, but that's not the case. So,
Yeah, and
you know,
we're in such a on top of that, and maybe because of that, we're in such a complicated world. It's challenging, and it's nice what you guys are doing, and will hopefully be a model for others, or people will just follow you and be part of what you do. Other parts of the industry that is, I think that would be amazing. So OpenStage.live is where people can learn more about what you're working on, and two things. First one, if someone has an artist they think might be a good fit, or at least a good fit for OpenStage to take a look at, and they heard this conversation, do you like getting those types of recommendations, or are people better to just go through OpenStage .live and inquire about it that way?
Yeah, I think through the website is definitely the best way. I'm happy for people to reach out directly to me, but I'd probably just signpost you to my esteemed colleague Meghna, who's much better at this than I am. So, because she can, you know, she can kind of quickly determine where we can help the most, add most value to what you're trying to do.
Okay.
So, you know, and then I essentially look after the relationships as soon as you're on board. So that's kind of my role at the company. Whereas Meghna is can kind of like show you the platform, show you, you know, quickly identify where the features are definitely going to help you the most, and kind of run you through all of that. So yeah, most of the stuff's on the website, and there's a sort of a box where you can request a demo and get one of the team to reach out to you.
Cool. Yep, I saw that. That's nice. And we may have covered it, so no worries if there's nothing more to add. But again, for anyone who is listening, who's an artist or in management that thinks this might be a good idea, is there, or maybe they don't even, they haven't quite gotten there yet. Is there anything that you want to say to them? Any like call to action, or just advice, words of wisdom during your time with OpenStage or before that you might want to share with them?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it's interesting. Our experiences in the United States, or North America, sorry, in general, I think there's a more of a. I think artist managers over there are a little bit more in tune to the audience development, director, fan, the importance of it, and I think they're really cottoning onto that very very quickly. You know, and then counterparts here in Europe are slowly waking up to the fact as well. And I think whatever stage you're at, you do need to put a strategy around your audience development and your director fan. Like, what are you doing? What tools are you using? How do you best understand your audience? How do you best serve your audience? And there's never too late to start thinking about that. You know, I work with artists that are just literally starting out for the first time, through to artists that are trying to reestablish themselves that might have been around, in decades past, through to huge legacy artists that have mountains and mountains of content, mountains of data, all scattered all around the place. So I'm working with those types of artists to kind of bring it all into one HUD and understand who their audience is, and then re-engage with that audience and bring them along, and take them on the next journey with them. So I really encourage artists and artist managers to really think about how they're going to develop the community around their music, how they're going to develop their audience, and also just to kind of really simplify what they're trying to achieve. I think a lot of artists and artist managers don't really take time to really think about what their objectives are, both long term and short term. I think it's really good to kind of get yourself a bit of a heading bug and head towards that, and identify how you're going to do that as well, and then just plug away at it. It's amazing to sort of see how doing things habitually over time, how it compounds. As I saw it with Sam Jackson and Only the Poets. It's been campaign week in, week out, campaign this week, campaign next week, campaign the week after, and all of a sudden you start seeing this, the fans coming along that journey with you. They love it as well. Fans want to know, fans want to help out, fans want to support, fans want to be at your shows, they want to be backstage, they want all of these things, and just kind of keep working at it. I think that's the main thing. Just really think about what you are trying to achieve and how you're going to try. How are you going to achieve it? Sounds like very basic, simple advice, but I think sometimes it just gets lost because there is a million things to think about being a musician. But when it comes to this stuff, I think that's what you're best off doing.
Yeah, and I know it can be discouraging to artists and musicians, but as you said, that as it is with all things in this business or any other, it doesn't happen overnight. And it sounds like Openstage and just the planning, the strategic mindset that you're talking about in general is part of a long game, right?
Absolutely. I think in this kind of the attention economy, you're competing with Instagram, Facebook, Netflix. By developing your audience, you're developing signal over noise. There's a lot out there, and if you can develop a community or a relationship with people through text or through email or through pre-saves, it's that signal noise ratio, isn't it? Like, forget all of that. I've got a new single out. It'll be worth your time. You've heard, we've been conversing back and forth all this time. And I think that's what we're trying to do. It's really difficult to know where to put your attention. And I'd always argue, put your attention into the people that care about you already. It's far easier to nurture a relationship than bring in. It's far easier to retain a customer than it is to find a new one. That's like a simple little business principle, isn't it? But really look after the people that are already there with you, because the others will come eventually. You just got to kind of really look after the people that are already in the club. And it sounds simple advice, but it's really true.
Always good to get the reminders. Always good, because there's so much to think about. So, well, Grant, I think we did good. Thanks for helping us better understand what's happening at Openstage and how it's been working for some of your artists, and sort of giving us a little backstory on how you got there.
Thanks, Rabonzo. It's always a pleasure.
Yeah, likewise. If you do not yet have a website for your music, check out Bandzoogle. It was created to help musicians and bands build their website and manage direct-to-fan marketing and sales. Bandzoogle features amazing design options, a commission-free store to sell music, merch, tickets, and more, and it provides detailed fan data. Try it free at bandzoogle.com. Use the promo code ROBONZO, ROBONZO, to get 15% off your first year. Thank you again for listening. If you enjoyed this episode of The Unstarving Musician, please follow us on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. You can leave us feedback at unstarvingmusician.com/feedback. I would love to hear from you. Find links for people and things mentioned in this episode at unstarvingmusician.com. Peace, gratitude, and a whole lot of love. If you're interested in starting a podcast but have been procrastinating, stick around for a couple more minutes, because I want to tell you about Podcast Startup. If you feel you need a little help getting your podcast started, Podcast Startup is for you. It's affordable, info-packed, and ideal for new podcasters. With Podcast Startup, you'll get an amazing step-by-step guide for getting started, lots of practical tips, and direct access to me for the unexpected, the deep questions, the I need a little more help kind of stuff related to podcasting. Look, I've published, recorded, and worked on over 275 podcast episodes. I'm constantly studying to improve my own game, and I want to start helping others start and sustain their own podcasts. Did you know that most podcasts don't make it past their first few episodes? That's right. They start, they stall, and then they die. Sustaining a podcast ain't easy. It's commitment. Poor planning and poor expectations are a recipe for a fast burnout and fade out for podcasters. This is exactly the kind of thing Podcast Startup was designed to help with. If you're intrigued, if you want to start a podcast the right way, go to unstarvingmusician.com/podcast startup to sign up for the beta launch. Wait, what? Beta launch? Yep. This is all new, and for a limited time, you can get a screaming deal on Podcast Startup. It'll always be well worth the price of admission, but the screaming deal is only available for a limited time. Go to unstarvingmusician.com/podcast startup to learn more. Start your podcast the right way with Podcast Startup by me and the Unstarving Musician. All right, one more time. Peace, gratitude, and a whole lot of love.